the New York Knicks select Kristaps Porzingis from Liepāja, Latvia.
Who the fuck is Tingus Pingus? I never heard of fucking Latvia.
Luka Doncic is the guard wing 2-3 from Real Madrid and Barcelona.
I don't give a damn about how this kid in Europe looks. I understand he's a 6'8" point guard. He's surreal. He'll probably be the number 2 overall pick.
His feet is slower than rush hour traffic, okay? Really slow feet.
Really? That's a problem.
So his NBA comparison is Hedo Turkoglu. Okay?
Domas Sabonis is a really good basketball player. And clearly, he's an all-star. It just doesn't move the needle for the Kings at all.
I apologize to Nikola Jokic, who is not only in the MVP discussion and deserved to be on my ballot, but he's one of the greatest players in the history of this game.
We shouldn't expect to see much from Porzingis until 2 or 3 years down the road. He was perceived as being a project that would be ready to produce in 3+ years. That was what we were told. I didn't see him. He was playing in Europe. I never saw the guy play.
The dude had 14, 3, and 5, and they're talking about him like he had a Russell Westbrook 40-point triple-double.
I don't know why in the Euro leagues the numbers are always smaller across the board.
And today I'm breaking down why Victor Wembanyama will be the biggest bust in NBA history.
One more of those and he is history, but that's rather unlikely. Volkov down the lane, lays it up, and a foul. Good move by
The Green Card 5. Alexander Volkov, Šarūnas Marčiulionis, Dražen Petrovic, Vlade Divac, and Žarko Paspal, the first 5 European players that directly went to NBA from Europe. The concept of an European basketball player back then in American eyes was that usually the Euro guys are soft, can only shoot the threes, will probably come over to the States, stick for a year, and will go back to dominate in their respective countries. Combine the factors that it was incredibly difficult to bring the best European players to NBA due to Iron Curtain, the ones that came to America had difficulties in understanding English and also had a culture shock. NBA back then was simply too different. A 3-point shot was considered to be a bad shot, more physical perimeter defense and no zone defense made a close-range jump shot more appealing, no off-ball movement, and there's a reason for us saying that certain players would flourish in today's NBA. But these 5 green card players made it clear that there's hidden talent in Europe, and as basketball slowly but steadily progressed and became a more global game, more and more Europeans came to NBA, and suddenly everyone wants the new Toni Kukoc. A decade later, everyone wants the new Dirk Nowitzki. The process wasn't that simple. Along the way there were multiple players that failed, maybe because they were hostages of being too modern and playing in the wrong era. The beginning of analytics in the early 90s had a huge impact of rethinking the 3-point shot, thus enabling already capable long-range shooters to attempting more shots, and from NBA scouts' perspective, Europeans became even more attractive. Basketball as a game became international. From Canada to China, from Serbia to Congo, the league became a worldwide attraction and NBA was reaping all the rewards. Now the tipping point, I would say, would be Greg Popovich and San Antonio Spurs, as they implemented the European style of constant motion and ball movement. Their offensive game plan consisted of copying the best European coaches, having a center that can pass the ball, a stretch forward that can shoot the ball, and a squad filled with players that understands that type of basketball. NBA soon became a copycat league. Every team wanted to have a Spurs ex-player that became a coach or an assistant coach that perfectly knew ins and outs on how to play like San Antonio Spurs. Without even a blink, the style that was created in Europe but popularized by Greg Popovich in NBA became the standard of winning basketball. And yet again, Europeans that were already playing like this for decades and had the fundamentals to understand and thrive in such system, they were on an even higher demand as ever. Thus, NBA GMs, coaches, and scouts began to realize the importance of finding and bringing European athletes to NBA. Well, everyone except the American media.
This is what we got to understand. We tend to over-sensationalize European basketball. Okay, there's restrictions that cater to him. You can't have 9 Americans on the floor in Europe. There's going to be 9 bred Americans on the floor with you 95% of the time in the NBA. That changes the dynamics of the game.
For the longest possible time, every single media analyst was convinced that NCAA is a better competition than EuroLeague. Basically, that college teams is a tougher matchup than a league consisting of players that actually played in NBA. It was extremely irritating listening how the media tried digesting the competition in Europe when it comes to analyzing Luka Doncic. EuroLeague has the biggest amount of ex-NBA players, and Luka debuted in EuroLeague when he was only 16. He didn't shy away from tough competition. Straight away he showcased extreme amounts of maturity. maturity. Luka possessed that talent and showcased his game at the highest level possible at that age. It was unseen, it was unheard, and everyone knew that this is something special. In his last season in Europe, Luka Doncic won a EuroLeague title, became EuroLeague's MVP, also Finals 4 MVP, Spanish League's MVP. He was the youngest winner of these awards at just 19. In the summer, Luka gifted his country Slovenia first ever medal in FIBA Eurobasket tournament. But I mean, who the hell cares? Those gun-hating, freedom-restricting Europeans with their small numbers, we can't analyze this, we can't transition Luka's game to NBA. What's more crazy that Kristaps Porzingis, a player that was deemed to be a bust, was already balling out for 3 years alongside Carmelo Anthony in a big market team. Kevin Durant even gave a nickname to Kristaps, calling him a unicorn, a nickname that is now popularized in describing point centers. So Porzingis completely flipped how most Americans viewed him. Knicks fans were literally apologizing to Kristaps as he became a sensation. Yet Kristaps didn't even play in EuroLeague, he played in a league behind EuroLeague and he was nowhere near NBA readiness as Luka was. Of course, for basketball masterminds like Stephen A. Smith, this didn't even register. If you put Martha Stewart, Flight, and Stephen A. Smith into the same room, Martha Stewart would definitely have the most basketball knowledge in that room. And why the hell a sports analyst needs to bring down one young player just to emphasize how good is another young player? Now I do understand that sports media has to dumb it down to the casual fans, but that's so fucking weird seeing a 50-year-old being so toxic towards a bunch of teenagers. And what about pronunciations? The dude can't Google or ask around how to pronounce Luka Doncic or Kristaps Porzingis? Of course he can easily delegate someone to quickly explain how to pronounce Doncic, but he chooses not to just to disrespect the player. Obviously now, when Europeans are winning MVP titles, NBA championships, when more and more Americans are trying to watch EuroLeague and FIBA games, Stephen A. Smith is forced to shift his opinion because he is a boomer who thinks that basketball is dominated by strictly American athletes. And the idea of basketball being a global game simply doesn't exist for him. Now, to be honest, I've been noticing that a lot of American basketball analysts and even players began understanding why Europeans have a competitive advantage over players that developed in AU basketball environment. A young player like Luka Doncic is thrown into a system of best young players. If he doesn't showcase glimpses of potential, he's out. Even more pressure when he moved up to the Real Madrid main team. No one is going to tank for your development, no one is going to be patient and babysit you. There's simply no room for mistakes. Either you show something right away or you're going back to the youth team or being loaned out. And evidently this kind of development is perfectly working at the highest level. So just stop gatekeeping basketball. Everyone enjoys and benefits from having Europeans, Asians, South Americans and North Americans playing and developing their players. And we should be happy to see diversity in a game that we love.